I did not expect such a really interesting magical fairy kind of setting that this book had. It's very, very green. I think that the world building in this is really, really good. I don't think I've read a book with a setting kind of like this. Like, I inhaled that book. I can definitely see some people finding this book a little bit slower to their liking. More often than not, they never described what these creatures were. The way that that part ended was really, really good, and I did not expect that at all. I think I have in the middle expectations for this book because I mean, I don't really know why. It's just kind of the way I feel. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. I like in the middle, but I'm hoping that I'm gonna like it more than I expect that I will. But yeah, I've never read anything from this author, so I don't know what type of writing style it is. I don't know what type of character is going to be in this book, but I'm going to go in with an open mind. So from my understanding, the Wild Huntress, there's 3 main characters, and the premise is basically every 5 years, there's this thing called the Wild Hunt. I don't exactly know what that entails. I imagine probably like monsters and stuff. And whoever wins this Wild Hunt will be granted 1 magical wish. And so obviously you can expect that there's going to be a lot of people who really need something in their lives changed. And so they'll end up going and participating in this wild hunt, which is very, very deadly. So our 3 characters, we have the one character who is like a human who's really, really good at slaying monsters. And she wants to be part of the wild hunt because she has a sick mom, and winning this means that this magical wish can save her mom. One of the other characters, the second character, is not very magically gifted compared to the rest of his family, but he can control plants, he's really good at sleight of hand, and he's entering the wild hunt because apparently he has like a tyrant of a brother, so I imagine that he'll probably want to make some kind of like wish so his brother isn't in charge. That's what I imagine for that character. And then our third character is actually like a royal bloodline person who just wants to figure out where they belong. So very like that person's like the oddity. It seems like people who attend and like risk their lives for this wild hunt are typically like in the poorer kind of regions. So it'll be interesting to see the contrast of like this character versus the others and how these 3 characters are going to interact. I don't know if they'll all be part of the same team or not, or if we're just gonna be following 3 different POVs. I'm not sure, but I'm excited. So without further ado, let's read The Wild Huntress. Oh, but wait, we know the drill. We gotta take this dust cover off first and see if there's a design underneath. Now, I kind of moved the dust cover so I can already see the colors, unfortunately, but it is what I would have guessed anyway, the green and gold. And then this would have the little October stamp, because I did get this book in October, but I'm reading it now at the end of November. So let's take this off and see what we got. All right, let's read this book for real. So I just finished the first part of The Wild Huntress, and you can see like, well, it's kind of hard to see on the camera here, but it is divided into kind of 3 distinct parts, so we'll be reviewing it that way. I think that the world building in this is really, really good. I didn't expect there to be kind of like, it's kind of like the fairy world, right? Because there's the other world and then there's like the regular world, and the amount of world building and character introduction that we're getting, like all this part that we just read, always this way, is solely that. We now are about to get into like the main plot about the wild hunt, but prior to that, I just learned so much about the characters and the magic system. So we have our 3 main characters, and we really only focused on the first 2, which is Branwen and Gwendolyn. And honestly, I think Gwendolyn, or however you say his name, is my favorite character in this book so far. He's really selfless, and he's also really strong, but he's also like not strong like physically, and he's more intelligent. Like he's like the trickster. He has this whole like thing of spies going on, and I just really like him as a character, and he's really just trying to do what's best for the kingdom and thinking like long term. So I think that he's cool, and he's actually the person who recruits BRANWEN, who is our wild huntress woman. And what's interesting about her that you learn in the prologue is that when she was a kid, her mom is a midwife, and so she delivers babies, and the folk from the other side kind of came and they needed her to deliver the baby because the mom on that side had iron in her and they couldn't take it out because that's weak. They like that is something that they cannot touch. It kills them and hurts them and weakens them. And so she comes on over with her baby, of course, because she can't leave her baby at home. And she pulls like the arrow out and she saves the baby. Unfortunately, the mom passes away. Not our main character mom though. And she anoints the baby because that's what's asked of her. But when she goes to turn to her own baby that's crying, she wipes away like a tear of her daughter's eye without realizing she had the oil on it. So now her daughter, one of her eyes, is actually able to see like the other world kind of creatures and monsters and stuff. And so the daughter basically lives with this little like blindfold to hide that part because she can get conscripted. And obviously the mom doesn't want that for her kid. And so, yeah, whenever the character takes off her blindfold, she's able to see all of these other monsters, which I think is really fun. And then the other character is the prince, who he only really had one chapter where it's just kind of introducing him, but it seems like this new part is like literally named after him. So I imagine that we're going to see him more now that we're going to be doing the Wild Hunt. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes. So yeah, excellent world building. I have a really good understanding of where the characters are, like what the setting is like. Very green, very lush, lots of trees, lots of magic, and I really am just like really excited that there's kind of this like folk kind of style to it, because that is the Otherlands, and I've always been a big fan of that, especially with the Emily Wilde series. So yeah, pleasant surprise. I didn't expect that at all. So yeah, I'm gonna continue to read The Wild Huntress, and I will update you when I get to the next part. So I will see you then. I just finished the second part of The Wild Huntress, and the way that that part ended was really, really good, and I did not expect that at all. It was fun getting to know the three characters a little bit more, especially the prince, who we only had like 1 or 2 pages about in the first part. I think that his backstory is really cool, and I like him as a character. I wish that there was more of him though. Like, I feel like there's not enough of him, if that makes sense. I don't know how else to explain it, because like he is here and he is interacted and stuff, but I don't know. I want to see more of him because I think he's pretty interesting. I don't think I've read a book with a setting kind of like this. This entire part that I just read was the Wild Hunt. I mean, they're still doing the Wild Hunt, but it was like they're all in the forest and they can like they're hiding up in trees and they're fighting people and they're hunting animals, and there was actually a really cool kind of spot where they met the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And so I thought that was cool because anytime that's in a story, it's so creatively done. And so they were able to kind of talk to those people, and there's 3 of them, and then there's our 3 main characters. So some really cool stuff happened in that kind of scene as well, and the importance of these like rins, and because like basically for the Wild Hunt, you have like your family rin or something that is kind of like related to your family. So one of our main characters, BRANWEN, she's not from royalty or anything. She just has this brooch that she got from this like kind of father figure in her life. And so she attached that. And that was kind of like how she entered the Wild Hunt. But then some other characters, they put their rins there or this and that. And it's like, if you hunt more rins, then you get more points. And if you get like those of royalty, then you get even more. So they're basically looking for the really, really kind of like royal ones, and they're like, let's go find the kins, because the 2 kins are also participating. So if they can get the kins rins, yeah, I know the way I say that, then they could win the Wild Hunt. And so that's kind of like their goal. And so it was fun. I honestly expected it to be a bit more fighting heavy, but it wasn't. It was more character driven and following them along and really just being immersed into this like magical forest. And yeah, I think I was kind of hoping though for a bit more like magical creatures and humans fighting humans. There's a little bit of humans fighting humans, but I would have liked to see more magical creatures. There is still the third part that we're in now, so maybe there'll still be some more magical creatures that we can see fighting, but yeah, that's where we're at. So I'm going to continue to read The Wild Huntress, and I will update you when I finish this book with my final thoughts, so I'll see you then. Wow, okay, so I devoured this book. It took me like less than 2 days to read this then. This was such a fun book. I really loved the pacing of it. I love the magic of it. It's like, how do I even describe it? It's like that old kind of like fairy folk world mixed with like an olden days, not quite medieval, but close enough to medieval times, like smashed together with like this big challenge. And it was just like, it was really fun. GWYDION and BRANWEN and PRYDERI, I really thought all of those characters had really great backstories, and how that kind of prophecy with the maiden, the mother, and the crone kind of played out. Everything that happened in that third and final act of this book was absolutely fabulous. I love the way that it ended. I love the way that each of the chapters kind of start off with this really well done background to these characters and their lives and their stories before bringing you back to the present day in the story. And it just made so much sense. It was just so well done. I think for me, this was one of those stories that I didn't realize I was enjoying as much as I was until I finished it and was like, wow, like I inhaled that book. And I think it just has to do with really great writing. I would say though, like one of the critiques that I have is that there are all of these like creature names, but more often than not, they never described what these creatures were. And like, I have no idea what like 90% of the creatures they talked about were. It was like these really hard to understand names that I wish I'm just not well versed in the mythology behind that. So I think I would have liked maybe like a glossary or like a little description, like the name of the creature looks kind of like this. I don't know, something like that, because it was hard for me to like I would get tripped up at times being like, oh, what now? Like, what is this? What does it look like? What does that mean? I'm not entirely sure. So that was kind of one of the only critiques though that I had. I can definitely see some people finding this book a little bit slower to their liking. I was definitely expecting it to be more action oriented with like monsters and stuff, but you don't really get as much of that. Instead, you just get this interesting story about these three people from completely different backgrounds who kind of team up together to achieve their goals, and you learn more about them and as they learn to trust each other and like literally with their lives. And so that's what the story actually is. So I was expecting action focused, but ended up having this nice story about these characters that was magical. So yeah, it was a good time. It was very green. That's the way I describe it. It's a very green book. And if you read the book, you know what I mean. And when you do go to read the book, when I say that it's green, like it just makes sense, okay? Just believe me. So today we are going to be awarding The Wild Huntress a total of 4 stars. I enjoyed it. Wasn't what I expected it to be, but I really liked the characters and the way that everything was described, and just the world building was really well done. I would have liked to actually see more about the characters, even though I know they had really great focuses on them. But yeah, it was a good book. I enjoyed it. So the next book that I'm going to be reading is The Road of Bones by Demi Winters. This is definitely a lot bigger of a book, which is nice. I always like to save a book around this size towards the end of the month, because I'll read it and then I'll finish it at the beginning of the month, and that just feels good to me. I don't know how else to explain like why that feels good, but like it feels good. So if you're interested in watching me read The Road of Bones or any other book that happens to be on my never-ending TBR, definitely hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!